blasted and
Hello and welcome to the Zaffie Show. We're happy to be here and hope that you will join us. It's real cold today. When I was driving up here, I noticed the river all frozen over. It looked beautiful, but it made me shiver. And it's January, and I'm sure, I shouldn't be talking about this now, but I'm sure the seed catalogs are out. And the farmers are looking at them. I know I am, and I'm thinking about my little plot of flowers, what I'm going to put here and there, and what's going to grow and what isn't. So I said to my daughter, that beautiful day we had, it was warm and nice, and I said to Maria, gee, feels like spring is coming. She says, Mom, we haven't had winter yet. So that's the way it is. I have some lovely guests today, and I would like to introduce you, Diane Cyr. She's the founder and board member of the Biddeford Cultural and Heritage Center. And Amanda Strayer, she's the volunteer coordinator.
Correct.
That's quite a job, too.
It is, but I love it.
I know, because I did hospice for a while, and my friend was a volunteer coordinator. It's not easy. Nothing's easy, is it?
No, it isn't.
But it's very rewarding.
We're very lucky to have her.
Thank you.
Could you tell us now why you got interested in Biddeford culture and heritage? That's new, isn't it?
We are very new. We just finished our first fiscal year. We started our second fiscal year, October 1st. And the reason we started it is because there was actually an article in one of the local papers about a group from Canada that was planning to come. They wanted to promote tourism, a Francophonie group. And I actually went and I met with the mayor about it, because I had been thinking, with all the changes and the growth and everything in the city, because it's really changed, and knowing from personal history that, you know, a lot of items when my parents died or my relatives, they get lost, they get thrown away. You forget the stories that you wish you had paid attention to. And the younger kids, a lot of them don't really know where they come from, or their heritage, or their history. And family and genealogy has always been important to me. So we started having meetings at the library, and a lot of people from different organizations came, and it kind of grew from there. So we originally had thought we might work as a program under the Biddeford Historical Society, because our missions are very similar, but we also, it's not just the historical facts. We're looking towards, we want the stories, we want the traditions, we want what makes us so special, what makes Biddeford and the area around it, you know, because it's all connected, Lyman, Saco, Kennebunk, Arundel. What makes us who we are as a people. And so we're hoping to work together with a lot of these different groups and really bring to light what all the different groups are doing, because they're all doing great things. So that's it.
Where do you live?
I actually live in Biddeford now. I grew up in Lyman, so I had my country grandparents and my city grandparents, but my dad was from Biddeford. We would come to church here in Biddeford. We would see, you know, the grandparents and the relatives that lived in the mills here. I did all my sacraments here, because we didn't have a church at that time in Lyman. So, but now we live not far from Dayton, so we're still out in the country. But it's a beautiful city, and it's
beautiful.
It's had a bad reputation in the past, but a lot of people are working to change that, and it's definitely growing.
My daughter teaches, one daughter teaches at Lyman School, and the other one teaches in Dayton.
Oh, so they're right near me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about you?
I got involved with the center through United Way's Volunteer Me website. They list a bunch of volunteer opportunities and organizations, and I happened to come across their advertising for a transcriptionist for their oral history program. And I thought, that could not be more amazing, because I've always had a love of the history of Biddeford, the mills, the Franco-Americans, the Irish, everything that it brought together. And as Diane mentioned, you always hear about the worst of things. You rarely hear about how great they are. So I felt like I could bring to light all that Biddeford has to offer. And I'm so lucky that I get to hear these stories and be part of their family, their life, their past, and bring it on to the next generation.
The Saco Museum has a lot of information about the Canadian girls that came down to work.
The mill
To the
girls,
mills.
Yeah.
So we went on a field trip when I was in one of my classes at Saco, and we had a field trip to the mills, and we learned all about the mill girls, and it was just so fascinating, everything they were willing to leave to have a chance at, the American dream and the struggles, but also the triumphs they got to experience in Biddeford and in the mills, and what an integral part of the society they were.
If you go in the mill now, it's like a little village.
It is. My husband says it's kind of, we're going back, it's like a renaissance. People came here in the mid to late 1800s to work in the mills from all these different countries. The Franco-Americans were latecomers to the story.
My father came from Greece. He worked in the mill.
Right. There were the Albanians, the Greek, the English, the Irish. There were a lot of people working in the mills. And then they kind of went through when they sold them all, or they died out. So they were empty for a long time, but now you're seeing a resurgence. You have all these people coming in again from all these different cultures with different ideas and diversity, and they're coming in, and the mills are growing and the area's thriving.
Can you believe, when you look at it, that brick, it's so beautiful after all these years.
Yeah.
I love looking at just the buildings and the architecture, because it's amazing to know that someone built that by hand without the technology and equipment we have today, and it still withstood the test of time and the elements, and it has so much history in its bones and stories.
Some of those buildings went up very quickly too. And Dana Peck does a good, I forget the name of it, but he does a really good job with he does a workshop for adult ed that talks about the mill culture and how it brought all the different populations in, like the Greeks and the Albanians, because when they started dyeing the materials or doing different patterns, they were the experts because they were the rug makers. So they're the people that they brought in to help with making the different patterns and dyeing the materials. Yeah. And a lot of people
When
didn't
I
know
go
that.
in there and look at the hall, I try to picture all those people working in there.
I know, I see the old pictures, I see a lot of old pictures, and I wonder if that was my husband, if those were my husband's ancestors who were here in 1900, or my grandparents or great-grandparents, because a lot of people in Biddeford worked in the mills. Not everyone. And people forget that there was more than the mills to Biddeford, because you have Biddeford Pool, you have, you had a boatyard, you had the fishermen, and then you had the farmers. Like my other, relatives, they were farmers and they worked on the farms. But most people did come to work at the mills, I think.
My father didn't like working in the mill, so he went to Kittery and opened the Kittery Fruit Company right next to the Navy Yard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he had his store. But he was a candy maker, an ice cream maker, an artist. He could do anything.
Uh-oh.
I can't.
So did he come directly from Greece?
Yeah.
So were you born here?
I
or-
was born here. My mother was born here.
Yeah. Do you speak Greek?
Yeah.
Oh,
Write it a little bit.
Oh,
That's
amazing.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and a lot of that's being lost now. Like, I could speak French, but I can't write it, and I have a hard time understanding it now.
I can remember when we lived sort of in the country, but there were all houses around us. And I went to a country school, and we'd walk to school right in the road because it was safe. And well, it was different.
Yeah. I had two of the teachers my mother had.
Did you?
I went to Cousins Memorial, which they are now looking to sell because the town, it's the oldest building in Lyman, and it was built in the 1930s, and that's the oldest town-owned building. It's not the oldest building.
Cousins, which one is that?
That's on Route 35. They're looking to sell it, and we were so hoping that someone would, rehab it and keep it because it's a beautiful building. They put a lot of work into it. But I had two of the teachers my mother had working there when she was there. And she came from Canada. She was born in Canada. And it's just interesting. All of this is interesting.
I know what I was going to say. I didn't want to go to Greek school after American school. And my mother was young. She'd chase me around the school building. And she made me go to Greek school, and I'm glad she did.
Well, we always hear the stories about the Catholic schools and the nuns, and I did not go to Catholic school, but my husband did. So we've interviewed so far 10 people. We've interviewed 5 of the women that we interviewed were Good Shepherd sisters, and recently we did Father Labar, and we've done the Strasslers, Dr. Strassler and his wife, and a musician, Toots Boutot. So we're getting there as far as the interviews go, but they're telling me that the stories we heard are not necessarily correct. But it's very interesting to hear those stories, and hoping that we'll be able to, right now we have a virtual, we're just through our programs and the computers, but we're hoping that in the future, when we get a space of our own, that we can have displays with headsets so people can hear maybe not the whole interview, but parts of it, and read along and see the pictures and really know what it was like.
That's nice.
And it's kind of funny because they're tying in together. The first lady we did spoke about how she used to babysit for Steve White. Steve White, do you know Steve White? They named the gym at the high school after him.
Oh, really?
So, and she used to babysit for his kids. And she was 103.
Oh, wow.
She died exactly a week after the interview, so it's almost like she was waiting to tell her story. The second lady was talking about, all of them talk about the war. One of the sisters, the nuns, talked about a musician who was her brother, and his name was Toots Boutot, who I guess a lot of people knew pretty well. The whole family was musical. So in reviewing one of the earlier transcripts from the second woman, her father or grandfather owned a restaurant in Biddeford, and she was talking how they used to have this family, this musical family, these brothers come in and play.
Oh my goodness.
And it was Toots Boutot, because she named him.
The small
so all
world.
of these
It is.
are kind of like connected. It's very interesting.
And it's amazing when you listen to them in order to do the transcribing that they all really held the same values. The thing that I found the most special was that for the ones who did have spouses, the story was always the same. Once they found them, they just knew and got married, and 63 plus years later, through all the ups and downs, they were still together or still in love before one of them would unfortunately pass. And they call it the good old days, and that's really what it was. And it's what we can hope to have in our day and time now.
Yeah. So that's one of we hold that program very dear. I think that's the one that we have the most people helping out and a lot of supporters with that program. We just want to make sure that we do it right before we start making everything public. The other program that we do is the Biddeford Hall of Fame, which we're kicking off for this year. So we will be accepting applications soon.
Will that be sports or
No, it's people that either are from the city or had some sort of significant impact on the city. So last year was our first Biddeford Hall of Fame. We picked 7 people, and because we've never had one, everyone that was selected or chosen by the committee was deceased.
Oh.
But because we have a lot of years to make up for. But they all had an impact. You know, Samuel de Champlain, he was the first person to make a map of the area and explore the area. You had, I'm trying to think of all, I can't think of all their names, but you had Rita Riley, who had the first soup kitchen in the state of Maine that she started in her basement. And we were fortunate enough that she had family that were able to come and accept for her. Sam Cohen, who's done so many things, has his own scholarship foundation. He had family that were able to come. And there were many, many others. Francis Spencer, who developed the Velux blanket that helped to keep the mills going for many years. His daughter came. So it made people feel really excited and happy and proud to celebrate these people that had such an impact. So we will be starting with that again soon. And we have a committee for that, and hoping we will be making it public at the Luck Headmast Festival.
That's good.
Yeah, they've been very good to us. They've allowed us, we work together with them, and they've allowed us to meet in their office space, and you know, they've allowed us to participate in the parade and hold our Hall of Fame in the big tent. And you know, we all have to work together.
Got to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get to. Now, I noticed something I read in the paper about your organization going to Augusta.
Yes.
Could you tell us about that?
Of course. On January 17th, we were one of a few nonprofits that were accepted to go to the State House, and it's for the main nonprofit, so we get to communicate with the legislators, let them know why what we're doing is important, why nonprofits in Maine in general are so crucial to the development of the state, and we also get to hear from them as to how we can help support them and make sure that what we're doing is in line with their vision for the state as well. It's an amazing honor to be able to go and also represent the Biddeford Cultural and Heritage Center as well as Biddeford as a whole.
Yes, it's pretty exciting. They only picked 12 nonprofits statewide. They all have different specialties, so ours is very different because you have, I can't remember what they are, but you know, food pantries and different specialties. But Maine has one of the highest, if not the highest, percentage of nonprofits.
I was just going to say that.
In the country. And I think 1 in 6 persons in the state, if I remember correctly, works for a nonprofit, and they bring in a tremendous amount of income. And if you look at the politics now, you know, with the shutdown, I just read today how a lot of nonprofits are stepping up to go and clean the parks and do things to help.
And help feed people and their families and
Yeah.
do whatever they can to make it a little easier for those who give what they can to make our lives easier and more secure.
That's right. Yeah, so that is quite an honor.
It is.
We're
It's
really
very
excited about
exciting. I'll be there with one of our other wonderful volunteers, Nicole Moore and Scribner. So we're both just ecstatic to be able to take part in that event and be able to represent all the good that the community and the Culture Center is doing.
Yep,
That's great.
it certainly is. I wish I could be there, but unfortunately I can't. But I know that it's going to be well taken care of, in good hands. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One of the other pieces of really good news is that on Giving, actually I got the results on Tuesday, which was Giving Day, the National Giving Day in November.
Oh, yeah, I read about that.
But I kept it under wraps until we had our as much as I could. It was very difficult until we had our meetings. I wanted to see everybody's faces, but we were the recipient of $10,000 grant
Ooh,
from
wow.
the Virginia Hodgkin Summers Foundation. So it's a general support grant. You know, we really need to decide and make sure we make the best use of those funds, but that's certainly going to help.
That's great.
It's amazing.
My goodness.
Yeah, so we're growing and getting new volunteers and have some more programming in mind for this year.
It's going to be a very exciting year
Yeah.
with the ideas
Everybody
and plans
needs
we have.
volunteers.
Yes, everybody.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So Amanda had a great idea for a program or a project that we plan to do later this year.
Yes, I had this idea while driving, But I thought of how great it would be to have a USO themed fundraiser, because you don't see those really anymore. And they were a big part of the past generation. So I thought it would be wonderful to have it closer to Veterans Day, and we would charge an admission for a ticket and say the ticket was $10.
That's a wonderful idea.
$5 of that would go to our organization, and the other half would go to an organization in Biddeford that helped local vets. So we're looking into the logistics of that, the place, but in my mind, it would be as close to an authentic USO with the music and the food, and it would be great
like
if
a lot
people.
of fun. I think that would be fun.
In my mind, everyone would come up dressed in 1940s or 50s.
Oh, yeah, what a good idea.
But it would be great to just kind of incorporate the past with the present and really show our veterans and those in Biddeford how much we do care about them. Yeah, and their stories are so important.
We wouldn't be walking around in freedom if it wasn't for them.
We would not. So it would be a great cultural and community service that we would be able to do with that project.
Great.
That's still under construction, but slowly but surely we're getting the pieces together.
The other thing is we want to try to involve the youth somehow, but it's hard because we're very small. We have a lot of organizational work to do. I have an idea that I would love to do and hopefully partner up either with a school or another organization in the city, but I'm not sure about the logistics, and that would be doing heritage journals with the kids and have them partner up with someone and get the stories, the recipes, talk about the music, do different sessions, and then at the end, have these heritage journals that they
I think that's wonderful, because I notice even in my church, we're not going to be Greek Orthodox much longer. We'll be just Orthodox. And all that we do is going to be, because the young ones are not, they're too busy. And they have families and they work.
Well, interesting enough, one of the nuns that we interviewed, we had a discussion about how the young people are different now. And I can't remember how she said it, but her comment was, it doesn't really matter if they go to church. A lot of them, they don't go to church, but they live their lives the way you do. They volunteer and they do good things and they care for people, and they're just inherently good. So we also went, Nicole and I both at different times went to the Jewish synagogue here in Biddeford.
Oh.
I never even knew there was one because I didn't grow up in, I grew up in Lyman. And we had a tour by Maureen King at 2 different times, and that was extremely interesting and eye-opening.
Where is this?
It's Bacon Street, the street St. Andrew's Church is on.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know they had one. And it's a beautiful church, and it is featured on our website now. Slowly working on the website, trying to update it as much as I can. That's another area that we really could use help on, is social media and web design, and because we weren't brought up with that.
No, I know.
No,
I know.
It's hard.
I'm always screaming for help.
I know, and I was hoping to get a young volunteer, because the kids know how to do all that stuff.
I know it.
But it's so hard. I spend more time trying to figure things out than actually doing them.
I'm getting brave, though. I dare to try to figure it out a little bit.
Well, that's one way to learn, is just trial and error. Keep
But
trying.
boy, I was scared at first. Oh.
You do have to we actually had a workshop for the people on the oral history program, because what we did is we got allotted some funds, and then the board approved that we bought some extra equipment to really get the program going and doing it right. So we got the equipment and we scheduled, you weren't able to attend that one.
I was not.
But we had a workshop, and they each got a packet with all the forms, and they were able to practice hands-on with the recorders, which was really nice. It was nice to do something like that all together. And it helps, like you said, when you can actually do it and practice it.
Well, I text, but I thought it was going to be so hard, but it was easy. But if you don't text, you might not hear from a grandchild for a while.
Yeah, they don't answer the phone, they text instead.
And it's becoming phone calls and letters and thank you cards, it's all becoming a lost art. And
It is.
it's so important because, like you said, a lot of grandparents or parents, they don't have access to text.
No.
And, you know, you have to try to keep that connection as strong as you can, even if it's with how busy everyone is, even if it's an hour or a minute. You know, it takes 2 seconds to write a thinking of you card.
Yep.
Well, I saw a meme, you know, a little joke thing. I don't know if you saw it. In the first picture, somebody's going in the mailbox and it's, yay, I got a letter. And the second picture is, you know, with this big computer, yay, I got a text. And then at the end, it's like, you know, and now we're getting back to the point where nobody gets letters. So now it's like, wow, I got a letter.
The only thing with text is you might not get the real meaning of the text.
Yes.
You misinterpret what they're saying.
Yes, with any text, emails, any online communication does open up that miscommunication because you can't read a person's body language, hear their tone. So you're going based off what your mind is reading, which could not always be correct.
Right. Like that commercial they've had. It's like, I can't, the car that is getting taken away, I can't believe it. And then the girl comes out with her dad and the car is there and she's like, I can't believe it. So if you read those words, you know, you're right.
Two different circumstances, but the same language can go either way.
Yep.
Which is why doing something like letters or a phone call is so important, because you can really convey your feelings and your tone. And
I can tell how people feel when they say hello. You can tell.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting when you talk about letters. The lady that did our second oral interview, her son is on our board, and they had an article in the paper a while back because they had these letters that her uncle, who she never met, well, maybe she had met him. He went to the war, World War I. He died on the very last day of the war.
Oh,
he was single, he was young, he never came home, but he wrote all these letters. So they found them, and they had a whole article in the paper about the letters, and she talked about them a little in her, very little, in her interview too. Somebody saw that because they mentioned the Biddeford Cultural and Heritage Center, and I tracked them down and laminated the whole article and mailed it to us. It's the first thing that we've actually received, and it was a bus driver from Saco, as I call the bus dispatcher, because the letter said friends and whatever, the students of bus, whatever. And it was so nice. That was just such a nice thing for them to do. And it all came from the story about the letters, which, you know, if you didn't, when you do genealogy or anything, if you don't marry and have children, you kind of get forgotten. But, you know, this man was a young man who went to war. He died for us. And he had all these, and he wasn't, you know, it's sad, but it's still interesting too.
And it's interesting how much even just one person's story could affect, you know, a whole busload or a whole town, and make them reflect and think about what they can improve on and what they appreciate about the past time, as well as what they can bring into the future with their next generation.
I had a lady in here. She's the head of the library in Saco. What is her name? She did a wonderful job. She wrote a book about the cemetery in Saco.
Oh, wow.
You know, where they have all the daffodils. She might be interested to get in touch with. She has a lot of information.
I haven't had a car for a while, and we don't live right in town. So, and I've been so busy, but I really need to connect with Dyer Library, because when we were speaking with Maureen, the synagogue had an anniversary several years ago, and the Dyer Library did a whole big thing.
This lady is great.
Yes.
So I really need to get over there and get more of that information to add. And the other thing is, if anybody ever has any information that they would like us to add to the website or share with others, they just need to contact us. One of the other projects that we're looking to do, this will probably be a program. We're working our programs we want our programs to fit into our mission. And our mission is to celebrate, preserve, share, and teach the culture, diversity, heritage, and history of the city of Biddeford, its people, and surrounding areas. So the Hall of Fame celebrates, what makes it special and the people. The Voices of Biddeford is sharing and preserving those stories and voices. So the mission day that we're planning, it would be like a conference day. And I'm not sure if we're going to be pulling it off this year or not. I'm trying really hard to get that done. I need a lot of help with that. It's a big project. But that's going to try to tie everything in, where we'll have lectures going on throughout the day. We'll have preservation scanners and things that people could save their pictures or whatever. And we're hoping to have other nonprofits there. So it's a big event, and we're hoping to do that sometime in October.
Great. I bet you'll find a lot of information and a lot of cooperation.
Yes,
I bet you will.
I think we're hoping that this is something that we're going to promote throughout New England and maybe even Canada, Quebec, to different organizations, because depending on what the workshops are, we're hoping to draw people in. And when we do that, the logistics aren't all planned yet, but who knows, you might have the Mill Museum might decide, well, let's schedule some mill tours that day. People want to sign up, or possibly cemetery tours or walking city tours. We don't know. It's still in the planning stages, but there are a lot of possibilities.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be a really good thing.
And even 2020 is going to be an exciting year because it's the 200 years of the state of Maine.
Oh.
Yeah, so right now we're focusing on this year's logistics, but we're definitely going to come up with some exciting things to celebrate.
Yeah, I
that.
didn't know that. We learned
Yep,
that.
the
I learned that
bicentennial.
yesterday.
Well, I
too.
learned it this minute.
Yeah, we learned that yesterday. So we need to plan something really special for
So-
that. And we were given a website, which I haven't checked out yet.
Of what other places in Maine are planning on doing.
Yeah.
So it's just great to see that the history of Maine goes back so far, and all the different components that have made it as successful as it is
It goes
now.
on and on.
Yeah.
It does, and it's more than just lobster and blueberries.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's great to be able to share that with outside of Maine. So because we're known for just the lobsters, but we have such a vast and sufficient
We have a-
history.
Excuse me, beautiful state,
We do.
and we have everything.
We're very fortunate. And now, we have the train. So if you wanted to go, we've got the oceans, we've got the mountains an hour away.
Everything.
If that's not good enough, you can take the train to Boston for the day.
Boston is
And-
home now.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very fortunate.
And we have a great culture with all the museums and the history sites and all the antique stores.
coastline.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's something for everyone here.
Yep.
There definitely
The
is.
forests,
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
schools too. We have some wonderful
We
schools.
do.
Yes.
Yeah. In the hospital.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
wonderful history.
So there's a
Goes
lot.
on and on, doesn't
does.
it?
It does, and it's interesting. And we're hoping to get more people to join us. We're not,
You
we
know-
don't charge a membership fee. We just want people to,
There's so many seniors. I would go after the seniors because they can tell you a lot.
yeah.
Yes.
But it's not, it's kind of turning out that way right now, just because, a lot of people are getting older, so we want to interview them while we can. But we also want to include, because of the diversity part of we are a diverse,
We're getting more
diverse
so.
city. Yes, we are. And so we want to include, the valedictorian of the high school last year was from another country, and she was #1 in her class. I don't recall her name. But we want to include interview
yes.
some of those people and some of the newer and older business people in the city too. Like the Riley's Bakery, they've been here forever.
Oh, forever.
And Alex Pizza.
Oh, we all have stories about
Yeah.
those people.
Exactly.
And then I remember one I would love to approach at some point, Sarah Jane Poley, because I remember they had a store at 5 Points. Plus, she was superintendent of schools for many years.
Wow.
Lovely lady.
Yeah. So, but we do want to include some of the younger people too, because,
Oh, yes.
for example, my neighbor's from England. He's a professor at UNE. He must have wonderful stories. He would be so interesting to talk to. His wife's from Kentucky. They're new, they're young, they're both new to the area. So we want to get everybody's perspective. 'Cause
That's good idea.
Not just, you know, what it used to be, but what is it now? What does it mean to you to live in Biddeford? And, you know, what are your impressions?
And for people looking to volunteer, even if you don't feel you have the time and your life is very busy, even just an hour a week or an hour a month can make such a big difference that it's unbelievable.
I remember when I first came here in 1949.
Wow.
I was a young bride. On Friday night and Saturday night, but especially Friday night, you could not walk in the streets of Biddeford. People.
Because there were a lot of people.
Butlers and all those stores.
I remember Butlers and Nichols.
Oh yeah, Palackridge.
Woolworths.
Yep. 5
Palackridge.
and 10, you'd go in, buy 5 cents worth of candy.
And Murphy's Music Store.
Yeah,
We used to buy all our sheet music there.
yeah.
And I've heard stories about all of these places, and I've always wondered when walking down the streets of Biddeford and visiting different locations, what did this exact spot look like 100 years ago? Who was standing here? What was their day like? What was their story? Which is why the Biddeford Cultural Heritage Center, the oral history program, is such amazing, because it gives people like me who wish they could have seen it all and felt it all a chance to do that.
Yeah.
And it's great to still see some of those places existing in Biddeford.
I love Butlers. You could go in
Oh,
there
me
and
too.
buy anything
Yeah, I liked it too.
for children or adults.
That was a big deal for us growing up, because we grew up in Lyman, so we would come downtown on the weekends or for shopping or whatever. There was a
And we
grocery
had
store.
nice stores. You
Yeah,
could go
and
in
we
and
would go window shopping even.
yeah. You could dress stores, men's stores.
Yeah, they
You
had
don't
them
see
at-
it anymore.
They had a, I don't remember what it's called, but there was a formal wear store. That's where I got my wedding dress.
Yeah.
Connie's? I don't remember the name of it. But yeah, it was different. But now we have other things. I mean,
We
a
have
lot
other
of,
things, but yeah.
It's not the big stores like they used to have.
No, Biddeford used to be the place to be, and it's slowly going to work its way back up
It
to
is.
that.
And now a lot of
Which
these
is
different
fabulous.
places are in the Mills and Main Street. We have all those little restaurants and specialty places, which is pretty nice, pretty cool.
But if anyone wants to bring back a 5 and 10, I'm completely okay with paying 5 cents and 10 cents. I will be on board
you
of
go
that.
in and buy little children's socks and ribbons for the hair and
Yeah.
things like that.
We see the old pictures sometimes. It's really
I used to like those little licorice babies there.
Yeah.
Oh, were they good?
The little, almost like the gummy bears, but they
Yeah,
were.
yeah.
My grandmother remembers those fondly from her childhood in Pennsylvania, even. And it's funny how something simple like that could touch so many different areas. But those little licorice babies were
Oh, love them.
everyone's favorite.
See, I grew up in Lyman, so, and it's probably getting off topic here, but I have 2 friends that used to live next to the village store on Route 35 in Lyman. So every once in a while I would go to their house after school, and they had the penny candy. Mr.
Oh,
Carl
I know.
Rhodes had that glass countertop with all those jars. Penny candy. We never had sweets. We had apples and bread and butter if we were hungry, you know. But yeah, it was even just Goodwin's Mills versus where I grew up was different. But yeah, it was nice to see that.
Apples, we had apples, grapes.
Yeah. Yeah, we always had to eat healthy, which was good.
But it's also nice to have that penny candy,
Yeah,
too.
but when
Oh,
I
I
used to see
know.
those jars with all those different kinds of penny, you could get so much for like 10 cents, you know.
That's
how
why
I
you've
felt.
got beautiful teeth, because you didn't eat candy.
That's how I felt
No,
with the
we didn't.
Wayway store in Saco as a child. I think it was more 5 to 10 cents than penny, but it was always such a treat to go in there and
I've never
see under
been
the
there.
glass. It's kind of the same thing that you explained, where it's a glass counter and all the candies underneath and behind, and it was such a magical place as a child, and it had such history. It's
think they're-
beautiful.
Are they still open?
They are.
Yeah.
I believe
They
they
reopened.
have seasonal
It's Peter
hours, but
Scontress now in Bridget.
yes, and
I'll have to
it was
try out with
great
my
to.
grandson.
I was able to meet the 2 elder ladies who ran or worked it, and they were just the sweetest things. So it was always my favorite time to go there for my, bi-weekly treat with my $5 and get my candy.
Oh.
Yeah, we all had traditions. After church, we would go to St. Joseph's because we didn't have Catholic church, and we would come to Lyman, and there was a little store, and we all got to get 2 comic books because they used to have comic books, and they were like 5 or 10 cents. I don't think they're like that anymore.
No.
But,
No. I remember at Easter time after communion, we always went to Riley's and got honey dips.
Oh, gosh.
That was,
yeah. Yeah, if we ever went to Riley's, that was a real treat.
it still is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. The recipes and the donuts. Mm.
Well, our time is going by. It's almost up.
Oh.
So if you can think of anything else you'd like to tell the folks.
Well, I just think that,
Right in that camera.
I just think that we're pretty laid back and a very, it's kind of fun. We're not strict. We don't charge fees to join. If you want to help or you're interested or you have stories that you want to share or something that you'd like to see us do, we're welcome to any help and any comments at all. So, I mean, we do have a couple of big projects coming up that we will need help with. They don't require a lot of time, depends on what you want to do, but we'll need help with a lot of different aspects. And so you can spend as much time or as little time as you want helping us.
And we'll make use of any skills at all that someone has. It doesn't have to be strictly historic. It could be if they're creative in art or researching, anything, we'll take use of it.
We have a lot of talented people
We do.
in our
we
area.
do.
We do.
And, most people, it's amazing how helpful they are, how they want to help. Mm-hmm. And we're probably going to be, we're still looking for a logo and branding, so that's one of the things we need to work on. We don't have a place, but we've been offered some possible space. It's not ready yet, but, we still, like I said, we need help with social media because I'm not good with that. And so there's a lot of areas that they could help if they want.
And it could be as simple as any generation, younger than myself currently or my generation, take the time to just talk with your parents, your grandparents, and just sit for a moment and listen to their stories and how they felt about the time they grew up, how they felt now, because eventually they're going to be gone, and with them, their story, their legacy, and without passing on their legacy, you're almost letting them go off into oblivion and not be remembered.
There's things I will never know
Right,
about my mother's family because she got killed very young. And, you wonder,
Yeah.
especially when they ask you questions, is there any this in your family?
That's why it's so important to have any kind of communication and take time to make that phone call or send that letter. Even if it's just a small thank you card, that can mean the difference to a grandparent.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons that I really want to do the Heritage Journals. I'm not sure how we're going to do it, but the whole intent is to have a younger person partner up with an older relative or person and have different sessions and listen to their stories. What did you eat? How did you get your food? Who cooked it? How did you learn to cook? What did you do for fun? What did you listen to for music? And then gather this information. They all have their iPads at school now. Gather this information and then have some art sessions or classes or get-togethers where they actually use that information, the recipes, the pictures, the naturalization record, whatever it might be, and make heritage journals.
Yeah. It would be great to pass on that love of history and culture to the future generations, because eventually that's all we're going to have. When we're gone, it's just the future. And a lot of the struggles and triumphs that we're encountering today, our past generations have already encountered and come through. So it would definitely be helpful to be able to continue conveying that information so that it's not lost.
Yeah.
Because without our past, we're nothing in the present.
No, that's what builds the culture.
Well, that's going to be good.
Yeah.
It is.
There's still a lot to do, but we're getting there. I'm actually proud of what we've actually accomplished a lot. And if anybody wants to see the first annual report, it is on the website, which is, I think, is listed in your credits. But, so it's all there.
Well, I thank you for coming.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you for
us.
having us.
It's been a pleasure.
It has been fun. Thank you.
And it reminds me of so many things. We could go on and talking about it.
Well, we will. We're going to get together and we're going to interview you next time.
Oh,
Let's get your history.
I think that's going to be a little different.
Well, I think that the Greek population is a big influence here in the cities.
Yes.
And the area.
Same with the Irish as well. There's a lot of good history and good
But you know what's
groups.
happening? Like they had the Ahepa. We had the Daughters of Penelope. Well, we don't have them anymore.
No.
And it's a shame. But the young people don't need it like our parents, our older people did when they came over.
Right.
They helped each other.
Yeah.
Now
Well, we have to get back to that.
Back to that support system.
Yeah, we have to all work together and help each other. And this workshop that we're taking and other workshops I've attended actually have helped us to connect with other organizations. Like, you know, you've got the Mission Hill Community Garden, you've got the whole Mission Hill complex, and you've got Engine, and you've got all these different organizations that are doing a lot for the city. And a lot of times we can work together and collaborate, and it just benefits all of us.
it does.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Well, thank you again for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed our program and learned a little bit. I did. I wish you good luck
Thank you.
and a successful year.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. It's going to be cold for a few days, so bundle up. But like I always say, don't fall. Don't fall. Love, Zaffie.